Hello, everybody. My name is Mr. Greg, and I'm going to tell you the story of The Little House. The Little House. The Little House is a wonderful book that you should read about a little house that lives, is from the countryside. And as life progresses and as the existence of this house, because the house doesn't have a life, but in the story you can imagine that it does, um, it tells about the story about how things change in the environment, how environments change and progress, and sometimes they can progress for the better, and sometimes they progress not necessarily for the best, especially for the little house, and the little house, since it's a little house that's from the countryside, and things change for it, it becomes a little house that is moved from the countryside into a more city and more urban environment. And after it goes from this countryside, which is where it's from, and where it's very, very comfortable and knows things very well, and likes and enjoys the nature and the life that it has in the countryside, it all of a sudden gets pushed into well, not all of a sudden, but kind of slowly gets pushed into this urban environment that takes away all of the things that it once had in life. And becomes, as this happens to the little house becomes more miserable and not very happy with this environment. And the things from the urban environment kind of pollute it and damage it and make it feel very, very, very terrible. Very terrible. All right, so now we're going to go through the story here since we have a bit of time to go through. And this is a very short, abbreviated version of the story of the little house so you get an idea of the story. But I recommend that you get the book and read it on your own because it's much more detailed and it's a very, very excellent story. It can give you lots of good words and pictures and an idea about the little house in a way that my short little 5-minute video can't tell you, just to tell you everything. So it's always best to get the book and read it by yourself. It's an excellent book, an excellent book. All right, so now we have the little house, and you can see the little house here in the countryside, There was a little house who lived in the country. Yes. Every day she watched the sun rise and set. And then at night she could see all of the stars in the sky. Every night she watched the stars and the moon. And you can see here times are very different for the little house. This is rather a long time ago. This is before cars and when they have horses and carriages and people dressed and lived very differently back then. Yes. She watched the horse-drawn carriages pass by her going down the country road very slowly and just at its own pace, at its own leisurely pace. Then one day things changed. Things started to change. You can see trucks started coming in, and the people aren't riding in horse-drawn carriages anymore. Yes, this is a bit of time into the future. Yes, and you can see trucks are coming, and they're paving a big road right in front of the little house, and a steam shovel, an excavator, is digging away. Yes, one day things started to change. A new road was built in front of her. And now there are more houses and more cars. Yes, and more people, and things moved very fast. Yes. Now cars drove by very quickly. There were more houses, yes. And then a little bit further on in the future, there are even more houses, and they tore down all of the old houses, and they put new, bigger ones to house more people because many people like to live in this nice place. Yes. As time went on, the houses were torn down and new buildings were built. Yes, new buildings were built. Things moved even faster now, and things changed even more. And you can see as things change and as things progress, you can see the little house, and the little house doesn't look so happy as it once was. And the grass is not so green, and it's very, very small, and it's very crowded around many, many buildings that are now around it. And there are cars and trucks and trolleys that go by and create lots of pollution and kind of harm the air and the environment. And it's not such a good place for the little house. As time went on, the buildings and fast pace of life went by quickly in front of the little house, with new trolleys going by. The little house missed her life in the country very much. It was very noisy now, and there was a lot of pollution. And then, eventually, they built an elevated train that went over the little house in the sky, going through the city, and new buildings were built that went up even taller and higher into the sky, As time went on, the buildings were being torn down, and new buildings were built. And they even built a train that went high above her in the air. Yes. And this is what they call progress. Progress, how things change. For the better, maybe for convenience, but maybe not always for the better. Yes. Yes, and you can see here they started building more buildings, even higher buildings, go higher and higher into the sky. Yes, building up even higher, and there's more pollution and bigger roads. Yes, bigger roads, and more construction and noise. It's very noisy, very noisy. Then they started to build brand new skyscrapers right next to the little house. She was miserable in this new city. She didn't like it at all. And then there was at night. And before, she used to be able to see all the stars in the sky. Now, there's all these lights and these big buildings. She can't see anything. It's always daytime. It's like always bright, and there's no grass and there's no sky. Yes, now the city was bright all day and night, and the little house didn't know if it was day or night because the tall buildings blocked the sun and the moon and the stars, and cars and everything kept on going by all times of the day and night. Yes. And then you can see all of the people moving by very quickly, and then the clouds and the pollution. Oh, very hard on the little house here. Yes. One day, the great-great-granddaughter of the man who built the little house saw her. That is the little house that my great-great-great-grandfather built. I saw a picture of it. We need to save the little house and make it a happy little house again. You can see here that the little girl, or now the great-great-granddaughter, went and took the little house, hired a moving truck, and moved her out of the city near all of those skyscrapers to some place that make her feel more comfortable and a much better environment for her. Yes. So they hired a truck and moved the little house out of the city. And they took her down a very long road, and the roads changed and got smaller and smaller till she was back on a nice dirt road way out in the countryside. Yes, and she could find a nice hill where they placed the little house. They found a wonderful little hill way out in the countryside, fixed her up, and gave her a new place to live. Now the little house is just as happy and as beautiful as she was when she was first built. She loves her new home way out in the countryside, And she has a happy new home in an environment where she feels more comfortable and where the environment is better, more well maintained and more natural. Sometimes we build up urban places and cities, and we have to be cautious in how we build those places, because if we don't let the environment coexist and cohabit with an environment that is healthy, it can be very, very hard for us. So that's why it's very important to be able to have a happy place for us to live. That is a place that can work together with the earth, and we can work together and feel healthy and safe and secure. And, well, might lose some convenience, but everybody's healthier and happier. Okay, all right, so I hope you enjoyed this story. And I will see all of you. I really suggest to read this book. It's a great book. It's a classic, very, very informative. And there's lots of words and lots of fun pictures to see into it as well. Okay, so I'll see you. Bye-bye.